Hello, this is Coding Gicha for full-stack developers. A graphic user interface is called GUI, and a text user interface is called TUI. Since the execution environment of TUI is usually terminal, it is used without distinction with CLI, which refers to a command line interface. Here, we will use CLI and TUI without distinction. Ubuntu's default terminal emulator is GNOME Terminal. You can run it by clicking the terminal icon in the application menu. You can also run it with a shortcut key for faster and more convenient execution. Press Ctrl-Alt-T to run it immediately. GNOME Terminal provides a modern and simple UI. In particular, it has the advantage of being able to perform multiple tasks with Tab. You can also create tabs with shortcut key. Although you can use GNOME Terminal without any inconvenience, if you want a more modern and intuitive terminal emulator, I recommend Tilix. It is a GTK3 tiling terminal emulator. However, starting with GNOME 47, terminal for GNOME console has been replaced with Tilix, and Ubuntu will also adopt it as the default terminal starting with the 26.04 LTS version. Tilix does not have a tiling function, but it is more modern and intuitive than Tilix, so you will probably not need to install Tilix separately in the future. Since Tilix is not the default terminal yet, I will install Tilix with apt. Tilix can physically split the screen in a GUI environment, and it is also easy to control with a mouse, etc. Let's change Ubuntu's default terminal to Tilix. Just set the X-terminal emulator to Tilix. Now, when you press Ctrl-Alt-T, Tilix will be launched, not GNOME Terminal. Since most GUI applications launch terminal by launching X-terminal emulator, Tilix, which is set as X-terminal emulator, will be launched automatically. However, some applications are set to GNOME Terminal. For example, Nautilus File Manager is stuck in GNOME Terminal, so it will be ignored even if you change it to X-terminal emulator or Tilix. Tilix solves this problem by adding an Open Tilix here menu to Nautilus context menu. Now you can simply launch Tilix by pressing Ctrl-Alt-T. However, you will get a notification that a configuration issue has been detected. Tilix uses a GTK3 widget called VTE, and the problem is caused by the vim-tiny file for VTE configuration not being executed. You can set Tilix's environment settings to execute commands as a login shell, but you can also solve this problem by editing the .bash rc file. When opening a text file with the Vim editor, if you give it the plush option, you can move the focus to the last line of the text document and open it. The Vim editor starts in normal mode. You need to press the key to enter the insert mode, and if you press alphabet O, a blank line will appear just below the line where the cursor is, and it will switch to insert mode. If you have a Tilix ID or a VTE version, I will set it to apply the VTE 2.91.sh file. In the case of Ubuntu, there is no vim-tiny file in the /etc/profile.d directory. You need to apply the VTE 2.91.sh file directly, or create a symbolic link to vim-tiny and apply the vim-tiny file. Once you are done editing the file, you need to return to normal mode to save or exit the document. Press ESC to switch to normal mode. Press colon to switch to command mode. Press WQ to save and exit. Vim is widely used as a text editor in the CLI environment, and I also prefer Vim. Once you get used to Vim, there is no better editor than this, but if you are using it for the first time, it may feel difficult, so I will explain the basic usage of Vim so that you can learn it. Of course, the Vim installed by default in Ubuntu is vim-tiny, which not only does not support color schemes, but also does not allow the use of arrow keys in insert mode, and does not allow the use of custom commands, etc., and only allows various limited functions. I will install Vim GTK3 later, and first continue setting up Tilix. I personally prefer the Yaru color scheme applied to Ubuntu's GNOME terminal, but Tilix does not support the latest Yaru scheme, so I will download Yaru 22, which is posted on my site, in advance. I will apply it when setting up the Tilix environment. The Yaru22 color scheme is a GNOME terminal color scheme applied to Ubuntu 22.04 that has been adapted to Tilix, and Ubuntu 24.04 also uses the same color scheme as 22.04. Tilix is intuitive and easy to use, so I will skip the explanation of how to use it and go straight to the preferences. In order to immediately check the reflection of the preferences, I will move the preferences window that covers the Tilix screen to the side and set it. To move Tilix, if you hold the title bar and drag it and accidentally click it, the title will be edited. I will change it so that you have to hold down Ctrl and click to edit it. The terminal title is thick and takes up a lot of space. I will change it to small. Tilix's terminal theme follows the system settings, but you can set it to dark regardless of the system settings. The default session name is the app name and the session name, but the app name is just the letters Tilix, so it will be longer, so I will remove it. If the screen is not split, I will set the terminal title to not be visible. Tilix does not take up physical space, and the scroll bar is set to be visible when the mouse is placed over the buffer area. If you want a physical scroll bar, you can disable the use of the overlay scroll bar. Tilix's shortcuts can also be modified to suit your personal environment. The shortcut to add terminal below is Ctrl-Alt-D, but Ubuntu uses it as a shortcut to hide all open windows, so it conflicts. Let's change it to Ctrl-Alt-B. Edit session name is disabled. Let's set it to Shift-Alt-R. I personally like the color scheme of GNOME terminal applied to Ubuntu, so I'll choose the Yaru22 color scheme that I downloaded earlier. I prefer a slightly wider screen, so I'll increase the width in the terminal size. The terminal size will be applied when you relaunch Tilix. Let's relaunch Tilix. There is no longer a notification that a configuration issue has been detected. Tilix's UI has also changed to resemble the familiar GNOME terminal. Let's install vim-GTK3. As mentioned earlier, the Vim editor installed on Ubuntu is vim-tiny, so its features are limited. vim-GTK3 also has a feature that allows you to use the GUI's system clipboard in the Vim editor. You can change the default editor with update alternatives. vim-GTK3 is automatically changed to the default editor. However, update alternatives connects the application to be used for the task in the GUI application, but Vim will be used in the CLI, so the setting is meaningless. You need to set vim-GTK3 with select editor. The default is nano. Let's set it to vim-GTK3. I will also set vim-GTK3 to be used in root account tasks with the sudo command. Double bang means the command that was executed immediately before. You can simply run it with sudo. The most used in the CLI environment are probably the Vim editor and the ls command, and setting these up powerfully will make the CLI environment more pleasant. The ls command simply lists file names. If you run the ls command with the al option, detailed information will be displayed. Commands with the al and uppercase F options added to the ls command can also be run simply as the ll command. The uppercase F is an option that displays additional indicators after the file name according to the file classification. Additional indicators such as / after a directory, * after an executable file, = after a socket, and @ after a link are displayed, but honestly, these days, it may not have much merit because color schemes are supported. ls outputs the directory and file names in alphabetical order, which makes it a bit confusing. Ubuntu's default shell is bash. You can change the bash shell settings by editing the .bash file. To search in the Vim editor, type a / and enter a search term. The Vim editor is in normal mode by default. You need to enter insert mode to edit. If you press uppercase A, the cursor will move to the end of the line and you can enter insert mode right away. For reference, if you press uppercase I, the cursor will move to the beginning of the line and you will enter insert mode. I set the directory to be visible first. In normal mode, press : and press WQ to save and exit. You need to restart terminal for it to take effect. Let's run ls again with the AL option. Now that the directories and files are separated, it's a bit easier to see, but the file list display is monotonous, so let's change it to LSD, which shows additional colors icons. Let's copy the download link address of the latest version of the deb file. Let's download the LSD installation deb file with wget. Let's install LSD. Let's delete the installation file. You can use LSD instead of ls. The file icons are all broken. And the directories and files are mixed together without distinction. The LSD icon requires Nerd fonts to be installed. The installation of Nerd fonts will be explained in the next video. Here, I will first set the icon to not be visible. Let's go to the .config directory under the home directory. The home directory can be simply used as tilde. Let's create a LSD directory under the .config directory. The config.yaml file under the created directory is the configuration file of LSD. Press alphabet I to change to insert mode. Since Nerd fonts are not installed, I will not show the icon for now. Let's set the directory to be shown before the file. Press ESC to return to normal mode. G will move focus to the first line of the document. Typing uppercase G will move focus to the last line. Let's move focus to the first line. Pressing uppercase O will put a blank line just above the line where the cursor is and put you in insert mode. I prefer the ISO date format. I'll also add the day of the week. Press ESC to switch to normal mode. Save and exit. The home directory can be simply used as tilde, so if you run it by adding tilde to the end of the CD, you will go to the home directory. If you run only the CD, you will go to the home directory. Let's run it again with the AL option after LSD. The broken icon is gone. The directory is shown first, and the date is in ISO format, so it looks better. This time, I explained the recommended applications for the CLI environment. Next time, I will set up the working environment in CLI to be more powerful and increase productivity.
Thank you for watching.